Well, everyone. Apparently, our uneducated, plain Jane of a daughter-in-law will be singing for us. Come on, get on stage already, you ugly duckling. My mother-in-law snickered. It was my sister-in-law's wedding reception, and she ordered me to perform a solo. As usual, my mother-in-law always finds a way to belittle me. Her audacity to humiliate me, even on such a joyous occasion as my sister-in-law's wedding, is beyond my comprehension. What's taking so long? Hurry up! She's getting impatient, her voice hardening. Okay then, I will. Excuse me. I stood up from my seat and slowly headed towards the stage. My name is Erica, 33 years old. I live in a house with my 4-year-old daughter, Janice, and my husband, Paul, who's the same age as me. We're in our 8th year of marriage. I lost my parents when I was a child and was raised by my grandparents thereafter. However, I didn't want to be a burden to them anymore, so I dropped out of high school and got a job at a local factory. Paul and I went to the same high school, and we were reconnected at a reunion when we were 21. We hit it off and started dating. 3 years after Paul graduated from university, we got married. I've been supporting my husband, taking care of our household chores, and raising our daughter while working part-time since our marriage.
Mom, teach me how to sing.
Recently, Janice has been asking me that quite a lot. Neither Paul nor I have any intention of forcing music onto her. I like music. I was the president of the choir club in high school. I still love singing and even take voice training lessons as a hobby. When both Paul and I are at home, I often sing to his music, and perhaps that's why Janice naturally developed an interest in music.
I want to sing beautifully like you do, Mom.
Seeing her say this with a smile, I can't help but smile back. When I told Paul about this, he reacted with joy, saying, "It's a blessing that she's enjoying music." However, we agreed that it would be better for a professional to teach her the basics of singing, and decided to take her to the voice trainer I often visit the next day. I hope that one day Janice and I can perform together with Paul's music. With these happy thoughts in mind, I fell asleep that day. 3 days later, when I returned home after shopping, my mother-in-law called. She started belittling me ever since she found out I dropped out of high school when I got married to Paul. To be honest, she isn't my favorite person. She often showers me with insults like, "Can't you even do that? You're so slow. Your parents were no good, huh? That's why you dropped out of high school, isn't it?" I wonder if she's going to say something nasty again. With feelings of apprehension, I answered a call from my mother-in-law. "Hello? Is Janice there right now?" "I'm sorry, she's at voice training right now. She's not home." After I said that, I realized I had let something slip, but it was too late. "Why didn't you tell me before letting her attend such things? You really don't think things through. I'll teach her." My mother-in-law, just like my husband Paul, graduated from a prestigious music academy as valedictorian. She's quite the accomplished musician. She dotes on our daughter and treats her with so much love. However, maybe because she was a valedictorian, she tends to take a condescending tone when it comes to music and education. Paul and his sister were both rigorously taught about music by her in the past, to the point where they began to despise it. I'm certain it would be the same even with her granddaughter. It would be a problem if Janice, who had just started taking interest in music, begins to hate it because of the condescending way it's taught. Mother-in-law, I appreciate your offer, but I want Janice to have her freedom in this. She won't improve if she's just playing around. Make her quit right now. Even if you say that, it's really up to Janice. I can't force her to quit. I'm sure it would be much better if I taught her. With that, she abruptly ended the call. 3 months passed, and I had almost forgotten about the incident when my mother-in-law decided to visit our home. It's been a while, hasn't it? Oh, how's Janice been doing? She was probably happy to see her granddaughter after such a long time. As soon as she stepped into our home, she immediately scooped Janice into her arms, barely greeting us. It just so happened that Janice had the day off from her voice training class, and the whole family was at home.
Granny, I've become good at singing,
Janice exclaimed, boasting to her grandmother. Really? Could you sing something for me then? I was worried about what my mother-in-law might say to Janice, so I intervened. How about we eat first before we hear her sing? It's lunchtime after all. Since it was noon, I tried to distract her by saying that, but don't interrupt when she's about to sing for me. My mother-in-law dismissed my suggestion with a single comment. I'm sorry, Janice dear, can you sing for me? My mother-in-law asked. Hearing her say that, Janice began to sing. From the perspective of a mother-in-law who graduated as the valedictorian of a music conservatory, my daughter's singing must sound rather clumsy. I had a sinking feeling inside me, worried that my daughter might get some snide remarks from her. However, my mother-in-law applauded and praised my daughter, saying, "You did well. You've practiced a lot," far from making any sarcastic comments.
Thank you, Grandma.
My daughter seemed happy to be praised by her grandmother. I sighed in relief, thinking that even my strict mother-in-law wouldn't make snide remarks to her granddaughter.
I thought Mom might say something, so I was a little scared,
Paul whispered to me with a look of relief on his face. Nothing particular happened after that, but as the evening came, I realized that Janice had fallen asleep. Excuse me, mother-in-law. Since Janice fell asleep, I'm going to take her to her room. I picked up Janice and carried her to her bedroom. After I put my daughter to bed, I returned to the living room. As soon as I returned to the living room, my mother-in-law said to me, "Didn't you think that Janice's singing today was terrible, Erica? It's a waste of money to let her go to a class that can only teach her to that level. I'll teach her myself." I guess that's what she thought after hearing my daughter singing today. But as I said before, we can't decide that without hearing what Janice has to say. If you keep saying such soft things, that's all she will ever be able to sing. My mother-in-law seemed to have no intention of listening to me, whatever I might have to say. I asked Paul to say something, but when it came to music, he couldn't stand up to his mother, and he fell silent. About 5 minutes of silence followed, and it was Paul who gave in and said, "All right, Mom, go ahead and teach Janice to sing for a while." Hearing those unbelievable words from Paul's mouth, my mind went blank. Is this some kind of joke? Won't they care how Janice feels? After all, she has been so happy to be interested in music. What if Janice hates music because she's taught so strictly by her grandmother? Wait a minute, isn't that a bit too selfish? I confronted Paul as anger welled up within me.
What can we do? When it comes to music, she's much better than me, and it's a fact that I got better by being taught by her.
I was so angry that I felt like waking up Janice right at that moment and leaving the house with her. So, I guess it means Janice is quitting the voice training class, as I said, right? My mother-in-law, with a triumphant look on her face, asked Paul and me. All right, but remember, this is not a music conservatory, so please absolutely do not do anything that Janice would dislike. I know that, you know. I'm not uneducated like you. I said what I had to say at least, knowing she'd never back off, and I let her go home for the day. That night, my husband apologized for his mother's behavior, but I did not even want to see his face. I ignored him and went to bed. Next morning, I told my daughter Janice, "From today, instead of going to the voice training class, let's have Grandma teach you to sing here at home, all right?" When she heard it, she looked very sad, but said nothing and just nodded. I'm sorry. Seeing her like that, all I could do was apologize. Then, come noon, my mother-in-law arrived at our home. "Janice, starting today, Grandma is going to teach you to sing even better." She said this to my daughter with a smile. No sooner had the lesson started than my mother-in-law's teaching style became more and more strict within an hour. "You're wrong. You're making the same mistake at the same place. Do it again." That's why I didn't want her to teach. I knew it would turn out like this. Mother-in-law, this isn't what we agreed to, is it? Could you be a bit gentler? What are you talking about? I'm being gentle. Don't interfere. Why don't you quietly do some housework that you can hardly handle? 4 hours passed, and at last, my mother-in-law's lesson ended. Well, see you tomorrow. Remember to practice what we did today. With that, she left, seemingly pleased with herself.
If I'm going to get yelled at this much, I don't want to sing anymore.
Seated in her chair, Janice said to me, I harbored an intense hatred for my mother-in-law, like I'd never felt before, for taking away what my daughter enjoyed and only caring about her own satisfaction. This cannot go on. I won't let my mother-in-law have her way. Her singing lessons continued in the days that followed. However, after about a week, Janice told me,
I don't want Grandma to teach me anymore. I don't want to sing.
Given my mother-in-law's way of teaching, I thought it couldn't be helped. You don't have to force yourself. If you want to quit, that's okay too. So, you don't want to go back to the voice training class? It was something she had started because she wanted to, and I, for my part, wanted her to continue, so I asked her that.
If it's that class?
It seemed that Janice hadn't come to hate singing itself. It appears that the harsh words from her grandmother and the lack of praise, even when she felt she did well, were making it unenjoyable for her. Why don't you go back to your voice training lessons and give it another shot? I asked Janice. As if she hadn't been upset moments before, she perked up and nodded enthusiastically. So I'm sorry to say this to you, Grandmother, but from tomorrow, Janice will be returning to her original voice training classes. The next day, I relayed Janice's feelings to her grandmother over the phone. How can she whine about giving up after just a week? Isn't it your fault for raising such a weak-minded child? Well, it might be, but even though you graduated top of your class from a prestigious music college, it seems that's the only way you know how to teach. Janice told me that she preferred her voice training teacher. As I retorted, the grandmother was fussing and fuming over the phone, but I ignored her and hung up. Whether she was top of her class or not, it was quite satisfying that her own teaching method had led to her being disliked by her granddaughter, who preferred her voice training teacher. After that, the visits from the grandmother ceased. I've spoken to your mother and told her it was okay if she didn't come to teach anymore. Janice said she didn't want it anymore either. I also feel like I've done something unforgivable to Janice. Back in the day, my mother was very strict with me about music, so I couldn't say anything. But I thought she wouldn't be so harsh on her granddaughter. I'm really sorry. That night, when I relayed this to my husband, Paul, he seemed deeply regretful and apologized. I was so angry when Paul suggested quitting Janice's voice training class and having the grandmother teacher instead that I almost felt like punching him. But fortunately, Janice didn't come to hate music, so I decided to forgive him. 2 weeks later, Paul said, My sister is getting married in a month and she asked us to perform. I had never performed at someone else's wedding before. What kind of performance is she expecting? I was planning to bring a few people from my band and do a small concert, but my sister really wants you and my mother to sing as well. I wasn't particularly thrilled about the idea, but hearing that the grandmother would also be performing, I reluctantly accepted Paul's suggestion. So, does that mean I'll be singing with your mother? Well, yeah, that's how it seems. Singing with my mother-in-law, of all people. I wondered if it would be all right. But if I happen to sing better than her at this performance, I wonder what she'll say. I started practicing the very next day, but there was no sign of my mother-in-law practicing at all. Mother, aren't you going to practice? I'm fine. I'm much better than you, even without practicing. After all, practice is something that people like you who are not very good need to do. I tried asking because I was curious, but the only response from my mother-in-law was sarcasm. I decided it was a waste of time to engage with her and focused on my own preparations. After we decided what song to perform, I also increased the frequency to get my voice training lessons. I was sick of being ridiculed by my mother-in-law. And, above all, I was anxious about singing in public after such a long time without proper training. And on the day of my sister-in-law's wedding, the ceremony went smoothly, and the time for the entertainment had finally come. First, my husband Paul took the stage and began to play his music. As expected, given he plays regularly, he was confident and exuded an elegant aura. I was utterly mesmerized by Paul's performance. "I'm not feeling well today. Could you sing on your own?" Then, out of the blue, my mother-in-law told me to sing solo. "What? That's so sudden, it's not fair." "Well, there's nothing we can do about it, or what? Are you too embarrassed to sing in front of others because you're uneducated and ugly?" She said this without a hint of remorse. Okay, I know it. She's doing this on purpose, I thought, and decided to retort. Being uneducated and ugly? I've practiced hard, so I won't be embarrassed singing in front of others. I asked you several times if you needed to practice, but you showed no signs of doing so. Could it be that you're actually a terrible singer? That's not true. My mother-in-law raised her voice in response to my question. The people around us began to stir, wondering what was going on. Sorry, it's nothing. I got up from my seat, apologized to those around me, and then pressed my mother-in-law further. Graduating as valedictorian from the music college, you sure talk big about teaching others, huh? Are you running away because you're embarrassed to sing with me since I'm better? I whispered this in her ear. What did you say? There's no way that's true. If I sing with a low-educated, ugly person like you, it would only throw me off. Didn't your parents teach you that? You and your parents are truly incompetent. She disparaged me as being uneducated and ugly, and even insulted my parents in front of everyone. Embarrassed and angry, I wanted to leave right at that moment. But if I ran away now, it would just make her happy. What are you doing just sitting there? Hurry up and go. Okay then, I will. Excuse me. Just as Paul's performance ended, I took his place on stage. I was supposed to sing with my mother-in-law, but due to her not feeling well, I'll be singing solo. Instead of the song I was supposed to sing with her, I chose an opera song I used to sing a lot when I was competitive, an aria from The Marriage of Figaro. And so I began to sing. At that moment, perhaps due to the vocal training I had done, my condition was excellent, and I was able to produce the most beautiful vibrato I'd ever achieved. It was amazing. The audience were mesmerized by my singing, saying things like, "Wow, her voice is incredible," and "Is she a professional?" When I finished singing my song without any hitches, the audience gave me a standing ovation, showering me with thunderous applause. Congrats on your wedding, sister-in-law. You know, I used to be the choir leader in high school. It's been a few years since I last sang in front of an audience, so I was a bit nervous. How did I do? Thanks so much for listening. After making this statement, I returned to my seat. My daughter, all starry-eyed, pleaded,
Mom, your voice was so beautiful. Can you teach me next time?
Witnessing this, my mother-in-law, with her jealousy on full display, said in a huff, Anyone can sing like that. Don't get ahead of yourself. She continued, never missing a chance to belittle my singing. Just as I thought the entertainment segment was over, my sister-in-law unexpectedly said, Mother-in-law, you should sing too. Words that I didn't expect came out from my sister-in-law. My mother-in-law was taken aback and looked at her daughter in confusion, asking, Me? I've never heard you sing, Mom, and since you taught me so much about music when I was young, I'd really love to hear you sing. My sister-in-law expressed this with pure honesty. The attendees chimed in, Mother-in-law, you should definitely sing. Words had gotten around that my mother-in-law was a top graduate from a prestigious music school, and the crowd grew increasingly excited for her performance, creating an atmosphere where she felt she had to sing. Well, with all this, I guess you have to sing now, don't you? I did not hesitate to add so. All right, if you insist," she responded, heading to the stage. The moment my mother-in-law took the stage, the energy in the room peaked. But as she began to sing,
"Wait, no way.
I might even be a better singer,"
such murmurs could be heard throughout the crowd. She must have heard them as well. My mother-in-law's voice did seem off, but even accounting for that, her singing was dreadful. She always criticized others for their singing, but her pitch was all over the place. Honestly, I felt I was still the better singer. The atmosphere grew awkward as her performance ended. Unlike when I sang, the venue was filled with cold atmosphere, and the applause was sparse. Everyone acted as if they'd seen something they shouldn't have, as if her turn had never happened. Upon returning to our table, my mother-in-law, her face flushed red, shouted at me, "That's why I didn't want to sing. If you had sung properly, my daughter wouldn't have asked me to do this," she said to me with such an angry tone, but I didn't understand why. When my sister-in-law asked her mother to sing, it seemed to me that she genuinely wanted the wedding to be blessed by the voice of her mother, who had been sternly teaching her about music since her childhood. "Do you think so? To me, it seems she genuinely wanted you to sing." I told my honest thought to my mother-in-law. "No way. I'm sure she knew I'm bad at singing, and this is her way of embarrassing me." I was utterly astonished at her response. She had always criticized others' music and performances, yet she herself didn't want to sing in public because she's bad at it? She never hesitates to complain about others' music, but she is like, "I don't accept complaints, although I'm a bad singer myself." Such a self-centered attitude won't be accepted. My daughter Janice might have her newfound love for music crushed by her grandmother. I could no longer bear my mother-in-law's attitude. So, a person who studied at a prestigious music school and criticizes others' music is just doing so because she can only sing this badly. But mother-in-law, isn't it great? You are able to sing alone without having to sing with a terrible singer like me. I responded to my mother-in-law with a sarcastic tone. "How dare you say that? It's your fault that I had to embarrass myself." It's not nice to say that in front of your daughter. I'm sure she's satisfied hearing her mother singing. As I spoke these words, my mother-in-law fell silent. There was a stir amongst those who had heard what I had said to my mother-in-law. But other than that, the ceremony went on smoothly and ended without any problems. 2 days after the ceremony, my mother-in-law stormed into our house. "I just can't let it go. I want you to apologize for what had happened." I was surprised by her sudden visit, but I retorted, "What exactly am I supposed to apologize for? I wasn't aware that your singing was that bad. Instead, I think you owe us an apology," I replied. "What do you mean? I have absolutely nothing to apologize for. It's your fault I was forced to sing that song I hated and embarrass myself." "No, not to me, to Janice. Because of you, Janice almost came to hate the music that she had started to enjoy. Even though you graduated from a prestigious music school, why would you torment a child who has developed an interest in music just because things didn't go your way? Is that what you learned from your music school? I haven't received any musical training from you, yet I was able to sing at the reception and even received applause. How about you, mother-in-law? Shall I give you some singing lessons? I'll teach you thoroughly." My mother-in-law was speechless hearing what I said. "If you have nothing else to discuss, please leave. I won't tolerate you interfering with our daughter or my husband's music anymore." Upon hearing this, my mother-in-law left our home without another word. Her shoulders slumped in defeat. I felt a sense of satisfaction from being able to retaliate so fiercely in her of expertise music. It was indeed worth continuing my voice training since my youth. Without the voice training, I might not have been able to receive such applause at my sister-in-law's wedding reception. I wonder how my mother-in-law, who has always boasted about graduating top of her class from a prestigious music school, felt being scolded this way by someone like me, who only has a high school diploma and was just a choir member. To be honest, I felt a sense of poetic justice towards my mother-in-law. I thought, serves her right. She shouldn't act so haughty anymore. It's been a month since the wedding ceremony of my sister-in-law, and now my mother-in-law occasionally visits our house, but she doesn't complain about my daughter's singing anymore. I actually didn't mind my mother-in-law visiting, since she did not say anything about music anymore. My daughter, Janice, who has improved a lot in her singing recently, is challenging a slightly difficult song, given as an assignment in her class.
Mom, this song is hard, but I'll try to sing it beautifully,
she declared, practicing enthusiastically. That's great. You do your best. You'll definitely do well. Although I love singing, don't know much about the technical aspects, so I had no idea what was difficult about the song. But seeing my daughter working so hard, that's all I could say. On that day, my mother-in-law, who happened to be visiting our house, observed the interaction between me and Janice and said, "Erica, this song is not something you can handle by just doing your best. Janice, listen well. You should do it like this." It was incredibly kind and patient of her, which was unimaginable given how she used to be, to explain until Janice understood.
"Oh, thank you, Grandma. It's easier to sing now,"
Janice said as she listened intently to her grandmother's advice, working hard to master her assignment. "Erica, I used to look down on everyone doing music without graduating from a music college. But after meeting someone like you, who can sing so beautifully without a music degree, I changed my mind. After all, we should enjoy music. Could you teach me to sing next time?" My mother-in-law said that, looking at Janice singing. I was surprised to hear such a thing all of a sudden, but I'm sure the sarcastic comment I made after my sister-in-law's wedding had its effect. "My lessons are tough, you know," I grinned as I replied to my mother-in-law. "Oh, I won't do anything horrible anymore. I feel sorry for Paul, too, although it's too late now. But if you're going to be tough, Erica, I'm prepared." After hearing that from my mother-in-law, I felt assured that she won't say anything about her music anymore. Although a lot had happened, the tension between my mother-in-law and me eased off, and since then, we've often gone to karaoke together, becoming close enough to sing together. I hope that one day, when Janice becomes even better at singing, the four of us, me, Paul, Janice, and my mother-in-law, can have a fun jam session.
My name is Charlotte. I'm currently 23, living with my family while looking for a job. Today, my mother seems a little on edge as my older brother Henry is bringing his girlfriend home. She's been restless all day, cleaning every corner of the house. Now it's also making me a bit anxious. We lost our father when we were young, so it's just been us and our mother. Whenever she smiles at my father's picture on the mantelpiece, it makes me feel warm inside. I wonder what she's like. Apparently, she's a very sweet girl. Just then, the doorbell rang. My mother goes to greet them, and Henry and his girlfriend entered our house. Henry's girlfriend is a striking beauty, and he introduces her, blushing slightly.
"Nice to meet you. I'm Emmy."
Our mother is visibly excited about Henry bringing such a beautiful woman home. We all sit down and start making small talk over tea.
"What do you do, Charlotte?"
At the moment, nothing. I'm job hunting. For a moment, I felt as if Emmy glared at me for a split second. When my mother left her seat to refill our teacups and Henry went to the restroom, we were left alone. I sensed Emmy scan me from my head to toe, like she was measuring my worth. Feeling the tense atmosphere, I thought of lightening the mood with a different topic.
"I heard you've never worked before. Is that true? Don't you feel embarrassed to be living off your mother at 23? Are you not planning to work? How do you even support yourself now?"
She bombarded me with questions before I could even change the subject. Seems like her sharp gaze that I sensed earlier wasn't just my imagination. She must be worried about me being jobless. She's considering getting married to my brother, so her being worried isn't out of the ordinary, I guess. I do plan to work.
"Plan to? Do you think you can get a job that easily? You don't look like someone who can easily land a job. And will you continue living here even after you start working?
What are you two talking about?
Just some girls talk. The moment Henry returns, Emmy blatantly changes her attitude. I suppose it could be seen as a typical conversation between women. She glares at me threateningly, gripping my brother's arm. It's clear we won't get along, and I guess she's not interested in getting along with me either. I started cleaning up with my mother after the two of them left. She's a cheerful girl, wasn't she? Yeah. I can't believe that Henry's getting married to a girl as beautiful and as sweet as her. Yeah. Seeing my mother happy, I couldn't bring myself to tell her about Emmy's behavior when we were alone. I'm not sure if she treated me like that because she didn't like me, or if that's just how she is. Is it because I'm not as attractive as her? Should I talk to Henry about this? But I don't want to cause a rift between them because of me. Maybe I'm just overthinking. We still don't know each other well, and things might change once I start working. The reason I'm not working is because I've been taking care of my grandmother. After earning my nursing certification from a vocational school, I decided to take care of my grandmother instead of working. Being raised by a single mother, my relatives and grandmother always took good care of us. I wasn't upset about having to take care of my grandmother after graduation. In fact, I always wanted to look after her. Everyone was supportive and appreciative, and it wasn't just on me. My grandmother passed away a few months ago. After sorting out my grandparents' paperwork and getting my driver's license, I began job hunting. Fortunately, I found a job quickly. Then I got a message from Henry saying, "I'm planning to marry Emmy in 6 months." I hadn't spoken to Emmy since their visit, and the thought of having to deal with her in the future was daunting. My mother attended a meeting between both families and returned with a smile saying her parents were nice and it was a pleasant meeting. Henry is busy with work, so they'll register their marriage first, but they plan to hold the wedding ceremony in 6 months. The awkwardness between Emmy and I remained, but Henry's marriage was still a great news to me. My mother and I went shopping and bought matching dishware as a gift. The wedding day approached. I received a text from Henry. Emmy wanted to hang out with me, just the two of us, and asked when I was available. Although I wanted to refuse, I also wanted to improve my relationship with Emmy, so I told him when I was off and agreed to have her over. I would have preferred a day when my mother was also free, but unfortunately we didn't have any day off together for the next couple of weeks. When I told my mother about it, she went out and bought my favorite food for me to have with Emmy. I convinced myself that Emmy was trying to motivate me to get a job since I was unemployed at the time. Then the day arrived. I saw my mother off to work and waited for Emmy. When the doorbell rang, I opened the door to find Emmy standing there with a sour look on her face. "Hey, come in." As I opened the door for her to enter, she let out a big sigh. "You bought a car, right? Henry told me. Can't you be considerate and come to pick me up? You're a grown woman now. You should know to be considerate. Also, the dishes you sent really have bad taste." I realized that she was referring to the gift I sent for getting their marriage certificate. I reaffirmed that she didn't like me and I didn't feel comfortable with her. Why did Emmy want to meet me in the first place? Emmy looked around the house, looking curious. "What exactly are you here for?" "I thought we should have a talk. You seem slow, so I figured I should just tell you up front." "A talk?" "I need to know when you're moving out. You started working, right? How about living on your own? You've had enough time being pampered. It's time to stand on your own 2 feet. The condescending tone was irritating, but I suppressed my anger. "It's none of your business, isn't it?" "You're so dense. I married your brother. I know a say in this household. I want to raise our child here. It's convenient here, and there are many places around to shop within walking distance. But I absolutely do not want to live with you. I fear living with you might turn me dull and gloomy. This house will eventually belong to your brother, so could you leave as soon as possible?" Did Henry say he wanted to live together in this house? I can't imagine him wanting that. "Even if he doesn't want it, if I ask, your brother will do it for me." She was incredibly selfish and self-centered. I was shocked. The thought of having to deal with her from now on gave me a headache. "I don't understand why Henry chose someone like you. Does he know this side of you?" "Sounds like you're jealous of me. Your brother, you see, is head over heels for me. He listens to whatever I say. Your mother, although plain, seems obedient, and we need someone to do the housework. I finally snagged a man with a good income." It puzzled me why only I had to leave, but it seemed like Emmy wanted to keep my mother as a housemaid. Emmy's way of speaking was infuriating.
I'm usually not the type to get mad quickly, so I didn't know how to express my anger.
Hey, what's this? This bag is of that high-end brand.
She picked up my bag that I had left in a corner of the living room. Please don't touch it.
It's not something a jobless person should be carrying around.
She began to rummage through my bag. Hey, stop that!
This watch looks pretty expensive. It'll probably suit me better.
She caught sight of a watch in my bag and picked it up. Give it back. That was a gift from my grandmother. I forcefully took back both my bag and the watch that Emmy was admiring. I knew it. We can't be friends. Please leave.
Sure thing.
Instead of causing more trouble, she quickly left with a smirk on her face. Still, why do I have to be treated like this? I cried alone, wondering what I had done to deserve this. That night, my brother and mother returned home. They brought Emmy with them. Charlotte, what were you thinking? Emmy told us you started a fight and treated her like a wicked stepsister. Emmy said that the moment she tried to pick up the bag you dropped, you shoved her away. My brother shouted in anger, and my mother scolded me. I didn't even touch her. I just took back my bag. She was the one being mean. I did my best to get along with her. I stood my ground, but
it's my fault. It seems Charlotte doesn't like me. I'm often disliked by girls my age. I guess Charlotte feels the same about me. She's upset because she feels like I've stolen her brother, right? It's my fault for not being considerate of her feelings.
I was mad at Emmy, but she was crying next to me. I was clearly the bad guy here. Apologize to Emmy, Charlotte. Even if there was a misunderstanding, you should apologize first. Even while pretending to cry, she was staring at me with her big, black eyes. It seemed like she was making a face that said, "In your face." I felt unheard and lonely, with neither my brother nor my mother listening to my side of the story. They both urged me to apologize. You guys really think I'm the type to pick on Emmy? I see. You guys won't believe me at all. They wouldn't hear me out at all. If I truly despised you, I wouldn't have sent you guys any gift at all. Anger and sadness mixed within me, and clutching only my purse, I dashed out of the house. Since my aunt's house was close by, I ran into her place with tears running down.
What happened, Charlotte? Why are you crying so much? What's going on?
My aunt let me into her house, rubbing my back as she listened to what I had to say.
Oh my, she sounds like the epitome of a nasty woman.
Even my mother and brother, they don't believe me. If I go back, Emmy will be there. I don't want to go home anymore.
They must have been convinced by her. If you don't want to go home, you can stay here. I'm just by myself here anyway.
Do you believe me, Auntie?
Of course, you're always kind and considerate of others. You would never say or do things to hurt others.
As I was talking with my aunt, my phone began to vibrate. It was a call from an unsaved number. I had a bad feeling about it and was hesitant to answer, but my aunt said,
"It might be that woman. Why don't you try answering it?"
So I nodded, put the call on speaker so my aunt could hear, and picked up.
Hello, can you hear me?
Probably she got my number from Henry when she said she'd come to visit. I wasn't up for it, but decided to speak anyway.
Where are you?
My aunt put her index finger to her lips, signaling me to keep quiet. At a hotel. I responded with the bare minimum.
Well, do you get it now? No one believes you. Even your mother believes me. I'm so lucky to have such a kind mother-in-law. Since then, they've both been comforting me. They were so angry with you, saying what a terrible person you are.
The revelation of Emmy's true nature triggered my aunt, her eyes wide with delight. I was upset about the fact that my mother and brother didn't believe me, but seeing my aunt react this way made me want to expose more of Emmy's true side. That's fine. There's no denying that I'm two-faced. Admitting my own faults made me feel less guilty and ready to fight back. Having my aunt right next to me mentally helped me great. Emmy, you mentioned you wanted to live in that house, right? Did you know that the house is actually under my name? It was originally my grandmother's, but I inherited it. So I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to live in my childhood home for the rest of my life.
What? Stop lying. I've never heard anything about this.
I had no reason to tell you. You can ask my brother if you want. Emmy hung up on me after I said that.
Well, that's interesting. Women like her are careful about who to pick on. She knows how to act in front of your brother and mother.
So my brother really doesn't know her true nature, huh?
He wouldn't have chosen her if he did. But she seems to be careless. She'll slip up sooner or later. If I step in, I might worsen your situation, so let's just see how things go for a while.
After discussing with my mother, I decided to live with my aunt for a while. Some time had passed since Emmy's outburst and she called me again.
So it seems like the house really is under your name. I don't get it. Does this mean that Henry received the inheritance money? I haven't heard any of this.
I have no reason to tell you because it has nothing to do with you. By the way, my brother hasn't inherited anything. I plan to get married to my current boyfriend and live in my childhood home. It's located in a good neighborhood, great for raising kids, and has everything within walking distance.
You have a boyfriend? I'm surprised. That house doesn't suit you. From the moment I saw you, I've been bothered by you. You're really getting in my way. In fact, I hate you.
This is the first time we've agreed on something. I absolutely despise you two.
Don't you dare show your face at my wedding. Even if you do come, I'll make things even worse for you. I'll tell Henry and your mother that you're not coming to the wedding. A sister who skips her brother's wedding. I'm looking forward to hearing all sorts of things about you at the ceremony.
God knows what she'll do if I said I'd attend the ceremony. I was starting to feel like I could care less about the whole thing. I answered with a sigh. Fine, as you wish. I won't attend your wedding. Do as you please. I hung up the phone. And I was hit with a wave of exhaustion. Don't worry, love. My aunt scooted to my side. Right before I knew it, she seemed to have been watching the whole time. Were you told not to come to the wedding? Yeah, but I can't just accept that, right? No, let's respect the bride's wishes. Leave it to me. It's probably best not to look at any text from your mother or brother for a while, especially on the wedding day. She gave a warm smile. On the day of the wedding, I received incessant calls from my mother and brother, but I didn't even look at their texts. I figured they must be criticizing me, fueled by Emmy's words, blaming me for not attending the wedding, so I turned off my phone. I'm home. Huh? Aunt, aren't you supposed to be at the wedding? She returned home in her casual clothes. She definitely didn't look like someone who had just come from a wedding. With you not attending, there's no way I could. Our whole family decided to decline the invitation to their wedding. While I was listening to my aunt's story, the doorbell unexpectedly rang. I went to the front door and saw my mother. She was dressed in a formal gown. Charlotte, I was wrong. I'm sorry. My mother apologized to me with a tired look on her face. When my aunt invited my mother inside, my aunt excitedly asked about the wedding. It seemed like Emmy knew the entire family from my brother's side would be absent, but she kept it a secret from my brother and my mother. My brother and my mother apparently had no idea that their entire family would be absent until today. They were astonished when they arrived at the venue. It looked like Emmy was using this as an excuse to sever her relationship with our family, but since it was a wedding, many guests were friends and people from work, and there were quite a few eyebrows raised at the fact that my mother was the only person attending from the groom's side. The ceremony went on amidst the unusual atmosphere. In the midst of this, Emmy, who was supposed to be receiving all the love and blessings, couldn't bear being whispered about on her big day and got into a fight with my brother. Having heard Emmy's incoherent slander about me, my mother seemed to have understood that I was telling the truth. The wedding ended with the atmosphere at its worst. While my aunt was explaining the situation to my mother, a call came in from Emmy. I put the call on speaker.
What the hell is going on?
The moment I picked up the phone, Emmy's loud voice pierced my ears. What's the matter, Emmy? Why are you shouting?
You orchestrated this, didn't you? You wicked bastard. You ruined my wedding.
I didn't do anything. You're the one who said that I was a nuisance and that I shouldn't come to the wedding, right? I just consulted with my aunt about it. Both of my parents' families have been around each other for long, and all of our relatives get along very well. Didn't you know that? This time, my aunt had spread the news to all our relatives. Many of the relatives were very fond of me, as I used to take care of my grandmother. They didn't want to attend the wedding of a bride who tried to belittle me, so it seems they all decided to not show up to the wedding.
What the hell? This is too unacceptable. I'm gonna make you pay for this.
Why should I? You're the one who treated me like a nuisance.
You were not working and staying at home, yet you were thanked and loved by everyone around you. You're nothing more than a basic chick who puts in no effort to stay well dressed, yet you own things like branded bags and expensive watches, and they don't even suit you at all. Now, the least you can do is cooperate with me a little bit.
Didn't you hear that I was not working due to some circumstances? I don't want to be around someone with an attitude like yours.
I don't care about what you have going on. You're always living your best life. It's not fair.
Emmy, is what you just said true?
Henry, why are you here?
Emmy, my sister-in-law, was flustered by the sudden sound of my brother's voice. Mid-conversation, Henry had come to visit our aunt's house and had been silently listening to our conversation. Is that how you've been feeling this whole time? What you said about Charlotte was all lies, wasn't it?
No, it's not like that.
Henry pulled out a watch from his pocket. It belonged to me. That's Grandma's watch. Why do you have it, Henry? It was in our house. I never lent it to Emmy. I nodded in agreement. Since I was staying at my aunt's house, I probably hadn't noticed that the watch was missing. When Emmy noticed the watch, she seemed to be perplexed, but I didn't expect her to have stolen it.
I'm sorry, Henry. It was a spur of the moment thing. I was jealous of Charlotte. I'm truly sorry.
Emma apologized to Henry. Emmy, could you also apologize to me for telling me to leave my parents' house, for trying to turn my mother into a housekeeper, for talking smack about me behind my back to my mother and brother, for stealing, and for treating me as if I'm unworthy of respect? Please apologize for all of it. Emmy, it seemed, was too prideful to apologize to me, so she ended the call with a scream. My brother and mother apologized to me. They apologized for not believing me. They both seemed to have received cold stares at the wedding, and having them apologize to me made me feel much better. After that, Emmy was brought by her parents to apologize. Henry filed a divorce from her. She came crying to me while apologizing to me, but I firmly refused her. Henry's intention to divorce was firm, and their marriage, which had not even lasted a year, came to an end. Emmy was also found to have been stealing at work, which turned into a major issue, and she lost her job. I heard rumors that she got in trouble with the police, but I'm not sure it's true or not. As for me, my life's back to normal, and I occasionally visit my relatives. I bragged to Emmy that I had a boyfriend, but in reality, I have no love interest. And I'm now being pestered by my aunt about it.